Welcome to the Literaryscapes podcast. I'm your host, Becki, and I'm excited to have you join me today. Do you enjoy escaping into a good book? What about exploring the world? Here on the Literaryscapes podcast, that's exactly what we do. Each episode, I introduce you to a new destination, a new book, a new author, maybe. So join me and see where we're escaping to today. Welcome to the episode. Okay, welcome to March in the book club. And this month we traveled to Scotland. And our book of the month was Golden Girls Road Trip by Kate Galley. And Kate, we are very excited to have you here this month. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me.
So one of the unique things this month was that I went to Scotland this month and spent 2 years or 2 years, 2 weeks there and just got home very late Thursday night. So
Jet
I'm
lag.
getting back on track. It felt good to shower in my own shower versus some of the Airbnbs. Their showers are like these teeny tiny cubicles that you bump your elbows if you try and move. So I was happy to have a little bit of space today. And
Home
so,
comfort.
yeah. So you don't live in Scotland, right?
No, I live 40 miles and 40 minutes out of London,
Okay.
in South Buckinghamshire. So yeah, just outside London.
Okay,
But
but Scotland's an easy train trip because that's kind of what we did.
yeah, well, I've not done it by train because I like a road trip. I like to drive. So when we went, we did a 1,300 mile road trip starting from our home and went up through the west, not the West Country, sorry, up through the northeast and northwest and up through
Okay.
Scotland. And I was so inspired going into Inverness, and then we I think it's the A89, that beautiful trek across the top of Loch Ness and comes down the other side and
Yeah.
locks that you drive through. It's just the most beautiful scenery, and I just felt really inspired for a road trip. But yeah, it took us. We did it. We did it. We left it. We decided on a Wednesday that we were going to do it. It was a really last minute thing. My husband is a carpenter, and the people that he was working for had sort of said to him, you know, it's going to be tricky over the next couple of days. We've got family coming. And he said, that's fine. I know my wife would like to do a road trip, so we'll start again next week. So we booked a hotel on the Wednesday night. I whizzed down to the supermarket to buy some food for our grown-up, late teens, early 20s, two boys. And we just said, well, we're leaving at 4 o'clock-ish in the morning and we'll see you in 3 days. And we just got in the car and drove. And I just love it. I just love doing that. And that's what inspired my story. Although, of course, it's, very much different to that. But
Right, right.
the idea, and actually, and for myself and my husband, slightly different from the book, of course, because, we're together and all the rest of it. But there's something about being in a confined space with somebody, even somebody you get on well with and you love, and you think, that's 10 hours of driving, we
That's a
could have run out of
lot of togetherness.
London, and how's it going to go? And I think after 22 years of marriage, you sort of think, we got to Scotland, it's like, no, we have plenty to talk about. We're good, we're all good, everything's fine.
Yeah, my husband and I do road trips up to North Carolina, and it's about a 14-hour drive. And for
Oh,
many
yeah,
years
that's
we
a lot.
had, yeah, it's a long one. And so we did it from, I don't know, the time my kids were infants, and we're doing it again this year. And my kids are young adults in their 20s, and so it's going to be very different this year. And it's just it's one of those things where, yeah, 20, 14 hours in a car, 20 plus years marriage, it's like
Yeah.
we don't talk hardly at all. And I bring a book and I bring, my iPad with movies or whatever, and we
Yeah.
just kind of do our thing,
Get
and
on with
he's
it,
in the
yeah.
zone, and I'm like, you do you. It's it's all good. Sh-
Absolutely. So
sh-
where do you live, Becki? Where are you?
I live in Florida,
Oh,
um,
okay.
and our European tangent is not here today, but we've got Massachusetts and Virginia and Florida here, and
Oh, great.
then England. So, but we usually have somebody from Norway and somebody from the Netherlands that join us as well. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, so it's
Very
been fun.
diverse
And
group of people. Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how we all actually found each other, but it's
Oh, that's great.
it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I am in a local book club. We've been meeting for 15 years actually now, and but we
Wow.
were literally mums met in the school playground and still have a monthly book club. But we do it through our local library, so we don't know what the book will be. One
Oh,
of us goes and collects the books, and we're given 10 books, and we meet in each other's houses once a month, and we all read the same book, obviously, and then discuss it the following month, which is great. And it's a night we started it because it was a free club, if you like,
right.
because everything, things can get very expensive. And we thought, well, let's have a book club, but let's not, it'd be so easy to start buying expensive hardbacks
Right,
or
right.
the latest so-and-so book is or whatever. But we decided if we do it through the library, we literally, whatever they have, and we've never had the same book over the last 15 years. I mean, it's a lot of books. So, and it works really well. But of course, that's very different from you guys on Zoom. So,
Yeah, it's for us, I usually start with our destination and figure out where do we want to go and then
yeah,
find books that fit. And I have to find at least one book that the author will be accessible. So
of course, yes. Yeah.
it makes it challenging. And I don't like horror books. I don't like, there's a few genres that I don't like, and so I don't choose them. But we do a variety in this group. We do a variety, historical fiction, women's fiction, romance, and
Well, we do mysteries,
we
all
do
kinds of
mysteries.
mysteries. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
love
Yeah.
mysteries. I would love
Mhm.
to be able to write a mystery, but that's not on the horizon quite yet. So are you a traditionally published author or an indie published?
So my publisher is I'm digitally first published with Boldwood. Um,
Okay.
so in a sense traditionally published, but Boldwood I think are now 5 years old, so they're quite a
Okay.
new publisher,
Awesome.
but they are making big strides. I think because they wanted to move away from the what we think of as the traditional publishing
Right,
model,
right,
the hardback book, that readers want things quickly, don't they now? I know I do. I don't want to necessarily buy a hardback book. I then don't want to wait 6 months to buy the same book in paperback.
right.
Um, so I think they push digital sales more than many other sales. And actually, the
Interesting.
majority of my readers are in America. Every time I look at my statement, the bigger figures are the American market, which is quite interesting, actually.
That
Um,
is, yeah. And it's also interesting. What I've noticed is readers want books more than just once a year. I mean,
yeah,
I know this group, people consume a lot of books, and
absolutely. Yeah.
it's ex like you said, it's expensive if you're doing it in hardback or even paperback. And if
Well, I
you're
think what Bold would like to do, because I think it's print on demand as well, is what they say is the reader should be able to choose what format they want the book in
Mhm.
on the day it is published. So on the day my books are published, you can buy it in hardback. It doesn't have a dust covered. It is literally just a hard covered book.
Right, right,
So there's hardback, paperback, audio. Obviously, I would say Kindle, but obviously I mean digital.
right,
Um,
right,
but that's so they want it to be up to the reader to decide, not the sort of, like I said, the as we all traditionally knew, the hardback, and then 6 months later the paperback of the same book comes out. And
right.
um, for the writer as well, that's a long time to be in a
Mhm.
loop, sort of a contract with a publisher. But I'm
Well,
contracted for
and yeah,
2 a
as the
year,
writer,
so
you're already working on like
yeah.
two books later kind of a thing.
Yeah,
Oh, and
exactly
then
that. Yeah.
yeah, so that
And
would
then
be
you're ready to
challenging.
promote books, but of course you're
Right.
having to look back and think about previous books. So
Exactly. And I always feel kind of bad about that because I know, like this one, The Golden Girls, I know that wasn't your latest book.
no, that's yeah.
But and so it is a challenge sometimes to remember all the characters and all
Yeah.
the things that you thought, that went into creating the story. But I love that there's so many options these days for readers and for authors. I think that's pretty
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely.
And so for Golden Girls Road Trip, I expected you to be older.
I'm 52 and I don't mind telling you. have my
But you're
grandchildren
not like
coming
in your
tonight.
70s, which is this characters were.
Well, I am my part-time day job. I'm actually a mobile hairdresser.
Oh,
So the nature of mobile hairdressing, it lends itself towards the older generation. For me
oh, for
personally, in
sure.
the village that I live in, because some of my, well, actually, to be fair, some of my clients, I have actually been doing their hair for 35 years. So I mean,
Oh, I
it's
love
not
that.
just that they're older now. We've sort of grown together, if you like. But a lot of the older generation whose hair I do, they do like to get their hair done at home. They don't want the hassle of having to go
Mhm.
into town, find a parking space, etc. And I think they prefer a personal touch rather than going into a busy, noisy salon. So
Yeah.
I speak to older people all the time. You know, I'm good friends with so many of my clients now, and the majority are in their 70s and 80s. So it
Okay.
feels quite natural to me to write from through their eyes, if you like. And because they have the most interesting stories to
Oh,
tell
for
because they've
sure.
been on the planet longer than everybody else. So of
Absolutely.
course they're going
Yeah.
to be more interesting. So my first book actually was inspired by a story one of my clients told me.
Oh, I
She
love that.
a Christmas coach trip, and even though my book is vastly different from it, one element of the story is the same, and she was telling me while I
Hmm.
was doing her hair. And by the time I'd finished her hair, I had the character it was in my head, I had the setting,
I love
and I
that.
said to her, "Do you mind if I think I've got a short story idea from what you've just told me?" And she said, "Go for it." But actually, it ended up turning into a novel, and that was the first book, and it was inspired by my client.
I love that. Which book was that?
That's the Second Chance Holiday Club,
We'll have
and
to
it's
look at that.
about
Okay.
a woman who goes on a coach trip to the Isle of Wight. Her husband dies, and she finds she finds a love letter he's written to another woman in his effects after the
Oh,
funeral. And it's in part a love letter, but it's also a confession to something he has done. And she herself, for various reasons, is quite housebound and not keen on going out, traveling, mixing. She's somebody that really likes to be at home, but in a moment of, well, she recognizes it herself. In a moment of spite, she decides to get on a Christmas coach trip to the Isle of Wight and go and hand deliver this ticking
oh,
time letter that she has in her handbag. So I had so much fun writing that.
oh, that
But
sounds
it's yeah, I mean it's so much more than that, of course. But that was the jumping
that
off
sounds
point.
like a fun book to write. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
well, it
that.
really was. It really was. But
That's
that was it. So my client is not the character, none of that. It's just one element in the book is that on Christmas Eve, this is the true part of the book. The manager and the majority of the staff walked out of the hotel for reasons unknown to my client in reality. And she said to me when she was telling me about her Christmas coach trip, which was in Manchester, it wasn't on the Isle of Wight, that they walked out, and she said we had a skeleton staff of teenagers, she said, who were
oh,
lovely, but they had to cook Christmas dinner for, she said, all these sort of oldies on their Christmas coach
oh
trip.
my
And she said
gosh.
they were brilliant, but they just said, look, we're leaving the linen cupboards open. Help yourself to whatever you want. We cannot come and clean your rooms because we can't do it. And she
Right.
was laughing. She was telling me this story, and I said to her, because I've known her for years, your Christmas dinners are legendary. I'm surprised you didn't get in the kitchen and help them. And she
That's
said, well,
exactly what I was thinking.
yeah, she said, I nearly did. And then, of course, all this came through, and I thought, I have a story in mind here. So, yeah, that was what I did.
Oh, that's so fun. Yeah, I can that's what came to my mind is if you've got this coach, this whole bus of people, there's got to be several people on there that know how to cook a Christmas dinner.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
And granted,
Yeah,
that's
and
not what they signed up for, but it seems
definitely
like
not. And it's interesting how some people are more happy to help and others
mhm,
not so much,
not so much. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun
How
anyway.
fun. I am going to have to pick up that book now because that sounds
Oh,
like
great.
fun. And I want to see where you go with it. So so how did you become a writer?
Well, first and foremost, I've been a reader all my life. Absolutely prolific reader. I was that annoying child who would want to read through dinner times, and my mother would make me sit on my book rather than, obviously not join in the family meals. And when I look back on it now, I find it strange that my sort of creativity went off in different directions, but not writing. So I started making stained glass windows and using kiln formed glass, so arts and crafts and
Wow.
things like that. Been a knitter, all these things, but weirdly not the writing. And I really don't know why that is, but I think it was 2017, I had this kind of now or never moment, I guess. And I thought, I really want to write.
Yeah.
Um, and I started putting pen to paper and wrote a couple of honestly quite dreadful things, but not for anyone to see. And then I thought, well, this is silly. It's all very well wanting to write, but I don't actually know how to craft a book. I've read so many of them, but
Yeah.
I can't, I feel like I need to have some guidance. So I went on a creative writing course online. And that was through the Curtis Brown Creative Writing School.
Fun.
Curtis Brown are a literary agency in London.
Oh,
They represent many authors that you would have heard of.
yeah.
They have a creative writing school, and some of the courses are huge courses where you go up to London, and I know I'm quite close to London, but it's still incredibly expensive to do that, and
Yeah.
I wasn't really in the market for that. I just wanted to have a go at home, but I met some brilliant people on that course, and we've sort of gone on to remain friends online and in real life. And these people are from all around the world as well, but we've still managed to meet in real life, which has been
I love
fantastic.
that.
Yeah, and also the other thing was I didn't necessarily think about being published when I started writing. I thought this is just, like a fun thing to do. But because I think because I'd chosen Creative Curtis Brown Creative, because they're a literary agency, of course, one of the arms to their course was how to get an agent,
Oh,
which wasn't something I'd considered. But of course, once I'd gone through the course, it was what everyone was doing. So I was sort of in that motion of sort of trying to do that. And I was actually writing something entirely different on the course, from my first book, the coach trip book. And I was really struggling, and I managed to I had a couple of little moments of good things, if you like, or things to remind me that maybe I'm not totally useless at this writing lark, because at the end of the course, my work was chosen as an overall, I'm going to say winner, but it wasn't really like that. It was, they chose me to have a conversation with one of their agents, and she gave
ooh,
me lots of tips and all the rest of it. I mean, the book wasn't finished then. And then I won another mentorship with Amanda Reynolds, who's a thriller writer. And again, she said, she was just on Twitter when Twitter was a nice place to be. And she said, she just put it out there and said, she was looking to mentor somebody, and send X number of pages of your writing. And she chose me, which was brilliant. So I had a couple of, oh, come on, Kate, you're not totally useless. You can do.
yeah.
I was working on I suppose it was sort of a thriller, but it wasn't really hitting the thriller beats. It was always more family drama, I suppose, but just in quite a dark setting. But I just didn't really ever plan it and plot it properly. And it was leading up to the Christmas 2019, when I thought, I'm just going to abandon this because this isn't working, and I'm just going to take a break from it and think about it. And that was the week that I went to go and do that lady's hair who told me about her Christmas coach trip. And then I, got very excited about the book. Yeah. So that's when I started writing that. But of course, that was 2020 then. And of course, we all know what happened in 2020. But actually, what happened for me was, it sounds awful because so many people suffered such terrible problems through, coronavirus.
Right.
But for me personally, I had my family around me. I couldn't go to work. We all know hairdressers were not allowed to work.
Right.
So I had to stay at home, along with so many other people. So I decided, right, okay, you've got this idea for this book, write it, just get on with it. And I did. And then one of our writing group, who I met on the original course, we have a group chat a day. We almost chat daily, actually, little bits and
I
snippets of
love that.
information and books we like and things like that. And they had said, have you seen Kate Nash Literary Agency are offering a mentorship scheme? Have you thought about sending your work in? And I did, and they picked me as one of their mentees. And then, of course, I had representation from one of their agents. So that was
Nice.
part of the package, if you like.
Okay.
Kind of, it wasn't, I never went out on submission, which is
Right, right.
big bugbear that a lot of authors find, going out, being thrown into the slush pile of the literary agents and trying to find representation. And it's not something I ever did. I should say though, I have since parted company with that particular agent. And so now I am back to being agentless again.
Ah,
But I do feel that now, I don't know if you have an agent, Becki, but I think there's an element of, now we are moving more. in a different direction, moving
Yeah.
away from that traditional publishing model that we were talking about,
Right.
that perhaps agents are not as necessary as they were before. Things are just changing, aren't they? So
Well,
we,
especially if you're not dealing with a traditional publisher, I
yeah,
don't think it's quite as necessary. So,
no,
yeah.
exactly. So for me personally, it's not necessary at this
Nice.
time. So
Nice.
yeah, so that's what happened for me. And then I obviously went out on submission with my agent at the time, with the Second Chance Holiday Club, and was picked up by Aria, which is an imprint of Bloomsbury.
Okay.
And my first, so the Golden Girls Road Trip, and the first, that's the second book that I'd written, and the Second Chance Holiday Club being first, were my first two books with Aria. Um,
Nice.
and I had an editor who I got on really, really well with. We just really clicked. She just knows what I'm trying to say and helped me say it in the best way. And then
Editors are worth every penny.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, but she moved, unfortunately. She moved to
Oh,
Boldwood. And I felt really, what do I do now? And actually, what I did was what any sane person would do, is I just followed her. So luckily, she and Boldwood offered me a contract. So it
yay.
wasn't really jumping ship. I was out of contract with Aria anyway, of course,
That
but
worked out well. Yeah.
it worked out brilliantly. So I still work with her now, which is great. And they've
That's
just offered me
awesome.
another contract, so that's good. So
Yay.
all is good. All is good.
Very cool. So, do your clients tend to inspire most of your stories
I
in
think they inspire
like
my
those?
characters. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there's just been a few, lots of conversations that I had where, I mean, people tell me a lot of things. I don't directly put any of those things
Sure,
in
sure.
the books, but more a feel or a vibe or the tone of characters. And none of my clients would open any of my books and see themselves particularly,
Right, right.
but all of them are influencing me in the characters that I write, just because obviously I'm writing about, you know, everybody we know, I suppose. So
Yeah,
they
in
might see
some
little Kate.
fashion.
Yeah. I'm not sure
Yeah.
anyone actually, I always wonder this, if people actually recognize themselves particularly. I
Yeah.
wonder if you see sort of comedy sketches and there's sort of particular types of people, whatever it might be in comedy sketches. And I think, I wonder if the people that they're sort of sending up here, I wonder if they're sitting at home thinking, that's me, because I
Yeah.
don't think
I
they
can't
are.
believe
I
he's
think
saying
they're
that about
thinking,
me.
yeah, I think they don't recognize themselves. And I think probably they'll be sitting at home and thinking, oh, that's really funny. Those people are so funny. But that's
That's,
just my assumption.
I like that. Yeah, yeah, I like that. So, do you consider, or maybe even more, your editor or your publisher, do they consider your books romance or women's fiction, or how do they categorize that?
They call it golden years fiction. I
Nice.
call it because my publisher now obviously didn't publish my first two books. So I guess the Golden Girls Road Trip, I suppose, could be considered a rom-com, I guess, with the older generation in it.
Yeah.
Um, but I think so I would say they would say golden years fiction, to make it
Okay.
quite simple. But every book is slightly different, and the book I've just written is set on the Shetland Islands, funnily enough, which is obviously so incredibly Scottish, and they consider that to be more book club fiction. So
Okay.
I don't really know, but the books deal with the older generation in them, and I like to think of them as coming of older age fiction rather
hmm
than coming of age fiction. It's it's second chances and all that sort of thing. So
Well, later in life themes are very popular because, I mean,
yeah,
hello, most of us are.
yeah,
There's a whole
exactly.
bunch of us that are later in life. So,
Yeah, definitely. And I really did feel that when I first started writing, it didn't occur to me to not write about the older generation. I don't know why. It was just in me to do that. Looking for, I mean, obviously there are books. I'm not saying I paved the way, but there were not that many books
yeah.
with the older generation. And I think I'd read Hazel Pryor's book, Away or Gone with the Penguins or Away with the Penguins. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
a big book. And that had a particularly an older lady in that. And there's a couple of others, but I there weren't that many, I suppose.
hmm
but I feel, do I have anything to say about 20-year-olds? I mean, obviously not everybody in every book is not going there.
Right.
Some people will be younger, but do I see through a 20-year-old's eyes? I mean,
Yeah,
obviously
I
I
can't
was 20
even
once, but
picture a 20-year-old in my head
yeah.
anymore. I mean, my kids are there, but
Yeah, exactly. It's
I
funny, isn't it? I
I
don't
can't
have anything interesting
pull
to
that
say
up.
through their
Yeah.
eyes. I think that's where it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
It just interests me more to write about. And I think also I was talking to my editor recently about sort of future ideas, and I said every time I watch anything on the TV, I was sometimes watch sort of romantic comedies,
Mhm.
films and things like that. But whatever tropes that I'm watching, I think, oh, this would be great if everyone was a bit older. Like, why is everyone 30 or 40, or 20 or whatever?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it'd be quite interesting to explore some of those themes that we're so familiar with, but with, the older generation.
I like that.
We
I
shall
like
see.
that. Yeah.
Interesting you saying about Hollywood because my agent managed to get me a conversation. My first book, The Second Chance Holiday Club, was optioned for TV by an American
Oh, how
producer.
fun.
It didn't go anywhere. I mean, like
Okay.
hardly any of them do they? But it was just
Yeah.
for me. Getting on a Zoom call with her was fantastic, and talking to her. But what was really interesting is she said what she would like to do with it would be to age everyone down slightly. And I didn't say, why would you do that? Don't,
Right.
please don't do that. But that was her vision for it anyway, making it
Yeah.
slightly edgier, she said, and aging everyone down a little bit. And I thought, but it
Kind of
didn't happen
missing the whole
anyway. So.
point here, honey.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. This is it's the Second Chance Holiday Club. I think she mentioned how she would quite be interested in Rosanna Arquette was a friend of hers, and that she thought, and I thought, Rosanna Arquette's not old enough to be in my book. I actually don't know how old she is, to
I
be
don't
fair.
either. Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. They are making a movie right now of, oh, what is it called? It's a murder club, Thursday Murder
Oh,
Club, something like
Richard
that.
Osman's book. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a Spielberg production, isn't it?
I'm not sure, but I know like Pierce Brosnan's in it, and I can't
Yeah.
remember the other people, but they are actually older people.
Yeah. I
And
think I think Helen Mirren, but I'm not
I think so too.
entirely sure. I'm pretty, and probably Penelope Wilton. I'm sure Penelope Wilton is in it too. So
But I
yeah.
love that that is an option for,
Yeah.
that they're actually using people who are in
Yeah.
their 70s or 80s.
Rather than
And
making people look older.
yeah, and like the oh, what is it called? I can't think of anything today. The one Only Murders in the Building
Oh,
with Steve Martin and Marty Short. They're
oh, I haven't seen
older,
that. Yeah, of
and
course. Is that recent?
it's on like Netflix or something. I
Oh,
think
I'm
there's
gonna have
two
to. I love
seasons
Steve
of
Martin.
it.
I'll have to dig that
It's the
out. Yeah.
two older guys and Selena Gomez, and they're a
Okay.
hoot together.
Yeah.
And yeah, if you enjoy mysteries, I think that one's fun. And
Oh, okay. No, I'm
they're like
definitely going to make a note
completely
of that.
crazy and fun and
Yeah.
neurotic and all of that.
All the good stuff.
So my daughter, who happens to be in her 20s, hooked me up with that one. So go
That's
figure, you
great.
know?
Yep.
So one of the things I noticed when we were in Scotland the last couple weeks is like, especially like up in Inverness or in the Highlands, everybody has a dog.
Oh yeah.
And they
Yeah.
all walk around with their dogs. Very few of them are on a leash, but they're extraordinarily well behaved. And my husband and I both commented on that. And we were talking about Alex has a dog in this story,
Yeah.
and how she doesn't have it on a leash like ever,
No.
and she takes it everywhere with her, and in restaurants, all of that, everywhere that in the United States nobody would ever consider taking a dog.
Well, I mean, she is quite arrogant, isn't she? So I suppose that is that sort of feel of things. I don't have a dog now. I did have a dog, but I would never have considered taking my dog out not on a lead, or I'd never would have taken my dog into a restaurant, or never would have assumed. I would always have assumed that the dog would not be welcome in a food, in a cafe or
Right.
whatever. But
Well,
that's just Alex, isn't it? I mean, that's
but
just how
when we
contrary.
were in Pitlochry, and it's a couple hours north of Edinburgh, and it's considered kind of the gateway to the Highlands. So small
Yeah.
town, has that Highland feel. Everybody had a dog, and most of them were not on a leash. And they all, I mean, every time we went out to a meal, there were people with dogs.
Yeah.
And they were in the restaurant just sitting under the table, and people would bring them water. And
Yeah.
and it was just normal. And
It's not normal around where I live in the south of
okay,
England. I mean, it would be in a like Sunday afternoon in a pub or something like that,
right,
maybe.
right,
Especially if you're in a walking situation, if it's pubs and places close to good walking routes. But
right, right,
the only people I see walking, it's usually men. I don't mean to be down on men, but it's usually men. And I guess it comes from an arrogant sort of place again. I see men walking their dogs not on leads, and um, I don't know, it's like an ownership. They sort of strutting along the dog, the dog will do what I tell it to do. And I'm thinking
right,
it's
right,
over the other side of the road now, and you haven't even seen it. And so I sometimes it's arrogant. I'm not just saying that everybody is arrogant about it, but
right,
there
right.
is an element of that sometimes, I think, with dog ownership, perhaps.
And that's
Not
when
all
we were
owners.
talking about the book, that's where we kind of went to with it. Like she
Yeah.
was extremely arrogant, and
Yeah, yeah, she
that
was.
came through with her dog. But then when I went to Scotland, I'm like, holy crap, everybody's like that.
Everyone's doing it. Yeah.
So I wasn't sure, after having seen it, I wasn't sure, like, is she really arrogant, or is this just like how they roll?
Yeah, I mean, because I'm from the south of England, I see it as quite arrogant. But then I'm,
Right,
again,
right.
exactly the same as you, being in Scotland, I'm thinking, oh, maybe she's not as arrogant as I thought. I know she's completely fictitious, but I've made up somebody who I wanted to be edgy, slightly arrogant,
Right, right.
But actually, exactly like you say, there were so many people who didn't have their dogs on leads, and I thought,
Exactly.
oh,
She
maybe
wasn't that out of the
she's a
ordinary.
regular person.
Yeah, so kind of funny.
Yeah,
That just struck me as funny, having just seen it.
yeah.
And my whole idea of her was like, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
So
But and the same for me, having written it and then gone up to Scotland and thought, oh,
right,
okay.
right. It's like,
Yeah.
So so how did that story you come to you? The two characters and
I
their
had
story.
I I had the character of Connie. I don't know, she just sort of fell into my head, if you like. And I wanted to write a road trip book. I saw somebody who had lived a slightly nomadic life and not a regular life. And how people do frown upon, how lots of people, and we're all guilty of it, frown upon people for not quite towing the line, or not doing not doing quite what I have done, or what so and so has done. And I saw someone who wasn't completely out there, because actually Connie, I think, is quite thoughtful and nice person, but hadn't, as I say, hadn't towed the line. And but I wanted to give her, I just thought about all the things that she would have done in the past, and I saw her on a road trip. I wanted to write a road trip book because I wanted to go on a road trip anyway. I wanted the excuse. I love all sorts of books, but if I really love a book, if somebody starts in London, they're getting on a plane and they're going to San Francisco, I'm already interested, because I think, oh, what are they going to see when they get
Mhm.
there?
Right,
So
right.
I did have that in my head, and I
Hmm.
always had in my head that she was going to Scotland to find the lost love of her life. And strangely, it was always going to be a woman. And I don't really know why that was. That it didn't occur to me that the person she was going to see in Scotland would be a man. It just literally didn't even occur to me until I started questioning my own plot, my book, etc., and having conversations with my editor. She was always going to see a woman. I mean, my editor had no problem with that. That was the story. But the funny thing was that she was always called Mari. Alex was never Alex. Alex was always called Mari. And from the start, Connie was going to see Mari. And it was my
Okay.
editor who said to me, I think she said you either need to, when we were going through edit, she said, I think what you either perhaps need to do is draw the romance side of things out. Maybe don't put that right in, telling all the secrets here. Don't put that in right at the start, or get the reader thinking that, or not thinking, or maybe have the reader assume that it could be a man. Maybe give her a gender neutral name and assume that this person is a man, because it's good to sort of subvert our assumptions, etc. And
Right,
I
right.
thought, I really like that idea actually, because I would probably assume, even though I always knew it was a woman, of course, I probably would read that and assume that Alex was
Hmm.
going to be a man. Of course, that's when I called her Alex. But the really funny thing was when I then went back to take out all the pronouns, change any mention of Mari was disappeared, obviously, and change her name to Alex. It was like I had this really mad moment where I started to rewrite the first part of the book. And I thought, oh, well, of course, it's a man now. And I didn't want it to be a man. Then I thought, no, she's not a man, Kate. She's a woman who happens to have a gender neutral name. So I'd even fooled myself.
That's so funny.
It's just how my silly mind works. But I did say to my editor, that's fine to do that. I think that could work. And I think that's quite an interesting turning point in the story.
Hmm.
But I said, it's called The Golden Girls Road Trip, and there are two women on the front cover. And she said, oh no, readers won't think about that. And I thought to myself, maybe, I don't know. I really don't know. And I joined a book group who had read it, and 20 people had said, when I asked them the question, I said, did you guess that Alex was a woman, or did it not occur to you? And they all said no.
Yeah.
Nobody. I said, but what did you think about the fact that it was called the Golden Girls Road Trip and had two women on the front? And they all said, didn't even think about it. So I think we don't, and especially if you read on digital copy, you don't always have the book in front of you with the
Right,
picture.
right,
It might draw you the title and the cover. You will notice that, of course, when you first pick up a
right,
book,
right.
even if you're shopping on Amazon or whatever, and even if you're
Hmm.
not getting a physical copy. But after that, when I pick my Kindle up, it's just a blank screen, and mine's
Right,
colorless
right.
as well. So you don't see the cover or the title, do you?
You have to
Yeah,
you have to intentionally go back if you
yeah,
want to see it. Yeah. So
yeah.
that's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, so it was turning things slightly on their head, but most people have said that they didn't, they assumed.
Hmm.
Well, to be fair, Connie was engaged to Leo, wasn't she? So
Hmm.
she was sort of
It was
becoming
it was a safe
conventional.
assumption, yeah,
Yeah.
because of that. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that we all said that we would have liked to have heard more of Alex's story because she
Yeah.
seemed really interesting, but it was Connie's story.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? And you
Yeah.
think about writing spin-offs or going back in time. When I originally started thinking about the book, I actually wrote back chapters. I don't mean back chapters. I wrote the past. There would be then and now.
Okay.
So it was showing their relationship and how they got together.
Oh.
It got a bit muddled, and it
Hmm.
it was getting a bit complicated because they were already traveling around the country delivering these paintings, and
Right.
that was quite busy enough in itself, if you like. And I decided to drop that. But there's so many options when you start writing a book, aren't there? You have a
Hmm.
jumping off point, you have an idea or a character or a strong sense of a plot, and you have to make a decision, don't you, on where you're going to go with it. And that's not always the easiest thing to do, is it?
Well, and it's always interesting because sometimes the characters kind of have their own ideas of where they want to go with
Yeah,
it. So
that's true. Yeah. And I don't
sometimes,
plot really heavily either, to be honest.
okay.
I have a rough, I see the book in the sense that you would think of, if you've watched a movie, you'd sort of see a beginning, a middle, and an end roughly. But
Right.
I don't sit down with spreadsheets like some of my friends do. And I've got a friend, she's a thriller writer though, to be fair. So I guess maybe it might be different, but
Yeah, I feel
she
like with a
literally writes
thriller or a
what's going to
mystery,
happen.
you kind
Yeah.
of need to have some
Yeah.
stuff figured out or know that you're going to have to do some serious
Serious edit.
editing in the next pass.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's true. I mean, my current book, my first book with Boldwood and my second book that's just come out with Boldwood are with the older generation still, but there's sort of a slight more of a mystery element to them.
Okay.
But and I had noticed with that, without the plotting, exactly what you say, I've still merrily gone along and written it, but I've thought, oh,
Hmm.
I've said too much then, I've got to change that. Oh, now we've got, so there is a lot more to think about actually if you add
Yeah.
any sort of mysterious element to it, I guess.
Was that the hang on just a second, Old Girls Behaving Badly?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Because I
Yeah.
read that one thinking that these were connected and they're
Oh,
not.
right. No, no. No, my first two are standalones, and then the Old Girls Behaving Badly and the Old Girls Chateau Escape are the
Okay.
two in the, and she's called Gina Knight, the main character in that book. So and Dorothy Reed is the
Right.
other 89, and Gina is 71.
Okay. She's just a
So
young
they,
thing.
yeah, just a young girl, absolutely. Um, but again, it just, my oldest client is 97,
I
and
love that.
she only gave her car up a few years back. She's marvelous. She's amazing. So, and she's a hive of information.
Oh, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I never get worried about. I mean, I don't think many of my reviews. I don't think many people have sort of said, "Oh, I don't think Dorothy would be able to do that," because I just think, yes, she can. She can do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
She's
If
not
they
abseiling or
think
anything.
that, then they probably don't know any older people. So,
Yeah, that's true. It's their assumption of what, and also I think we're
hmm.
a decade out now, aren't we? We've as human beings, people in their 80s really are more in their 70s. People in their 60s are really in their 50s. Or that's how we are because of
The
our,
older
like
we get,
I said.
the
Yeah,
further
yeah,
the further out old gets.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
That's so funny. It's very true though. Very true. So, the cover, was that the editor's idea?
Yeah, with the camper van, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've never had much input into my covers.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
people like it,
typical
I would say. They do what they do,
because we
and the
wanted a
titles.
baby blanket on the cover.
Oh, yeah.
We thought
Or
that would
some
be
paintings.
lovely.
I said we can be, and then it got too busy. I think they wanted to have for it to look like the Highlands of Scotland.
Yeah, yeah.
And they wanted the van because that was what they were driving in. Yeah, I've stopped naming my books because
They do
they
what they want
they
anyway.
do what they want, and I love it when you get the email that says, we're thrilled to we've been talking about your book and we're thrilled to make this suggestion of
Mm.
XYZ. And I always say to my husband, I've just been given my new title, and we know what
Your
they're
new
saying is,
marching
this is your
orders.
title, you better have a good reason why you don't like it. And actually mostly they work because
That's
I'm
cool.
I'm not in marketing. I'm a hairdresser, and I'm a writer. I don't know anything about marketing, but they do, and they know
Hmm.
what someone's interested in, what will interest someone, and pick, a title that will be
Right.
um, right for the book, etc.
Well, and it tells you right off what the characters are.
Yeah,
Old
yeah,
girls
they like
behaving
the
badly, golden
exactly
girls road
Golden
trip.
Girls.
You
Yeah,
know what you're getting.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
And
I think so. But I'm not, I don't think I'm very good at giving titles to books. Apart from the book that I've just written, and for 100 billion great reasons why they're not using my title, I still love that title. So I can tell you what it used to be called. I probably won't say what their suggestions are yet because they haven't put that out there.
right,
But
right.
the book I've just written, just finished, I called Norman Knit's Bucket List. And it's
Love it.
about Norman Knits was a YouTuber, a prominent knitter YouTuber with many, many thousands of followers, and a knitwear designer. And he sadly has died. We never meet Norman, but he has called upon his three friends to go and scatter his ashes in the most northerly point of the UK, which well, he doesn't say that to start with. He writes them a letter and asks them to do that, and it's like a nice thing that he wants to happen. And even though the three of them all love Norman, they don't actually like each other. So
Oh,
this is quite a leap of faith to get these three people back together again. They all used to work together, to get them back together to scatter his ashes. And the most northerly point of the UK is Outstack, actually, which is a tiny rock just near Muckleflugger Lighthouse, which is in the northernmost point of the UK, in the northernmost point of the Shetland Islands. So once
Okay.
you get to the this rock, there is nothing before you get to, I don't know, the North Pole. There's no land,
Wow.
no more land. So
Wow.
that's where they're going, which has been brilliant to write. But I called it Norman Knit's bucket list because he was Norman Knit's and it's his bucket list. And I thought that's a
Makes sense.
fun title. But of course, for all the right reasons, as they said, your readers come to you for your golden years fiction. It doesn't really say
It
golden
doesn't
years.
say that.
It doesn't say,
Hmm.
even though the three friends is one man and two women.
Okay.
Um, Poor Derek. Oh, love him. But yeah, this poor man with these two feisty women. But I get what they're saying. It's kind of like we need to keep a theme running, even though
Right.
all my books touch on various subjects and topics and things. It's not all light and fluffy and whatever. But they wanted it to come across in the right way, and they know what they're doing. But I
Right.
haven't seen the cover yet, but that one should be
Okay.
out late summer. So that
Very
will be
good.
interesting. And my first
And
book
is
was
it part of a series or is it a standalone?
no, this is a standalone. So, and now I'm writing another old girls book now,
Okay.
which will come out next year. So I'm sort of trying to keep the series going because I
Hmm.
really enjoy writing Gina and Dot
Yeah.
stories. I mean, it started out, funnily enough, as Gina Knight was a companion to, I think you said you read it, Becki, didn't you?
Yeah.
My idea was that a great series character, having her go and be companion to somebody else every time, I could send her off in millions of
Oh,
different directions. How interesting that could be. But then I wrote it, and of course, my editor and I both agreed that we really loved Dorothy and their relationship together. And then I started to write the second one, and that was fine because Meredith, who Gina goes to look after, is a friend of Dorothy's. So Dorothy is still in the book. But I said to my editor, I can't have Dorothy going and getting in Gina's way every time she goes to be companion to somebody. But I don't
right.
feel I can leave her behind. So I think these are going to more lean towards Gina and Dot adventure stories rather
Oh,
than
that's fun.
Gina Knight companion, because I
Yeah,
don't really
yeah.
break up their friendship. So they're really good fun to write.
That's a fun way to do it, and that'll be
Yeah, definitely.
interesting to hear. So that'll be fun to see.
And also the fact that it naturally has morphed into that rather than me forcing get rid
Hmm.
of Gina, get rid of Dorothy rather, and I must make Gina do this when really that's
Right.
not what's working. So I think it's
Yeah.
important to have a rethink, isn't it?
Nice. Nice. So when you read, what do you like to read?
Oh gosh, everything. I like favorite authors are people like Rachel Joyce, who I don't know if you've read her.
Mm-mm.
Um, uh, Miss Benson's Beetle is one of my absolute favorite books. It's just so much fun. It's a women's story. It's an adventure going to the other side of the world, like everything I love, all in that book.
Nice.
And it's set in the 1950s, so there's a slight history
Hmm.
to it, but it's just
Awesome.
brilliant. Absolutely love that. But Rachel Joyce's first book was The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. It's again just a brilliant story. She's such a good. She's just had a new one coming out actually. I think it's coming out next month, so I'm really
Fun.
excited to read that. See, she would be one of my. I'm going to buy the hardback. So I do have authors that I will
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
hardback because I cannot wait. And I would like to add it to my collection on my shelf. But
Right.
I like some thrillers, not lots of thrillers. I like Lisa Jewell. She's a good thriller writer to me. I like how she writes. Um, and I but other than that, I read just really, really broadly. I don't actually read a lot of thrillers because I find for my taste, I find it a little they just quite often you get this big wow premise that drags you in and you think, how on earth are they going to get to the bottom of this mystery? And actually it becomes either ridiculous
Yeah.
or unsatisfactory or people are doing the most ridiculous things. And I don't really enjoy that. I think I like my fiction a bit more bedded into reality, I guess, with adventure, of course, and all the rest.
Right.
So definitely adventure
It's
stories.
a fine balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
husband and I
exactly.
used to read Clive Cussler a lot.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this goes back, 20 years, maybe even 30 years. And
Yeah.
his, swashbuckling heroes are larger than life. And every book is like the end of the world is on the line. And
Yeah.
after many, many books of his, it's like, you know,
Yeah.
they're all kind of starting to feel the same.
Yeah. Might need a break from that.
Right.
And it's funny
Yeah.
as we get older as well, how our tastes change, perhaps.
They do. Yeah.
And sometimes I like to read quite literary novels, depending on what they are, of course. There's got to be a good plot for me. I do like cozy crime. I like Richard Osman and his
Yeah.
books, latest book actually, more so than the Thursday Murder Club books. But yeah, I could tell you all the authors, but there's so many. And I like audiobooks. A good audiobook, I think,
Yeah.
is a really great thing because anytime not reading for me feels like a waste of time. So I will knit and listen, or dishwasher and listen, or
Yeah.
go to the shops and listen to a book. But
Nice.
it has to be, I think, it has to be a good narrator, doesn't it? Otherwise, it's I find my sort of concentration can wander. That can be tricky, and then you find yourself rewinding it because you've missed bits and that sort of thing. But
Yeah. Yeah, I like to listen to audiobooks if I'm on a road trip, and
yeah,
I can't be with my husband, so it's not that often
okay,
because he's usually my driver.
yeah,
But every once in a while I'll be on a road trip by myself, and I love listening to something, that is going to take me through, and it makes the time go so much faster. And
yeah,
yeah, I love that. So, well,
yeah.
very good. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been
Oh,
a
it's
lot of
been
fun getting
Yeah,
to know
thanks so
you and
much
your
for
books.
inviting me. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been so much fun. How is your
Okay,
weather there
good.
today?
Oh, it's really lovely. It's sunny and bright. Oh, and we had a partial eclipse as well.
Oh,
So
cool.
my husband and my sons were outside. It was only 35% eclipse. And of course, you go out, it's not like it went dark or anything.
Right, right.
And they're doing old school, getting bits of paper and cutting holes in the middle and
Yeah.
directing it onto the table and trying to see it and all the rest of it.
Oh,
So that
that's
was
fun.
a moment of fun in the garden. But yeah, no, it's
Learning
really nice
moment.
today. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, very cool. Well,
Yeah.
thank you again. We thoroughly enjoyed this, and
Brilliant.
look forward to looking up some of those other books. I definitely want to read the Second Chance Holiday Club. That sounds like
Oh,
so
great.
much
Thank you.
fun. So thank you.
That's
And I want
great.
to look up Rachel Joyce as well, just to see what her
Oh,
books
Miss
are.
Benson's
So
Beetle is just a brilliant, brilliant book. I love it.
awesome.
I
Thank
really
you.
recommend.
Thanks for joining me today on the Literary Scapes podcast. If you enjoy reading your way around the world like I do, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to join me in the Literary Scapes Book Club. Each month, I offer up a new destination, 2 books that we'll read together, and then the author will join us of one of the books. So if that is something that sounds exciting to you and you'd like to be in a community that reads together, then check out the show notes. I'll have a link in there for the Literary Escapes Book Club. Until I see you again, have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon. Happy reading.